Turn for home here at Belmont Park. Way behind in third, it's Cash for Clunkers, but there's no doubt about the result now. Here is a champion in action. Royal Delta striding past the 8th pole with a super effort here this afternoon. It's Tricky was no match for Royal Delta today. Geared down to a triumphant victory here in the Beldame, winning by 8 lengths. She could have won by much more than that.
Back on track, big win from Royal Delta in the Beldame. Welcome to the starting gate. Greg Wolf, Matt Carruthers, and we start this show off about as strong as you possibly can. Joining us on the line is the trainer of Royal Delta, who is going to have a very busy championship weekend, Bill Mott. Mr. Mott, thanks for coming on the show. Great to have you on, and I know take time out of your very busy schedule. Let's start with Royal Delta and talk to us. Obviously, she has a chance to repeat in the Ladies Classic, but she is cross-centered in the Classic. Is there a scenario, and what would it be, where she would go against the boys?
Well, actually, I mean, initially and since the beginning of the year, our plan has been to go in the Ladies Classic, and I think that's probably the way we'll go. You know, we just Mr. Leone wanted to have a look at the Classic and felt if it wasn't, you know, going to cost us anything to do it, that we could go ahead and at least pre-enter and then give us a few more days to decide. But I think everybody is leaning toward the Ladies Classic, and he intends to race Royal Delta next year, and I think we've already talked about it. You know, if she would have a successful year, we may go out in the Classic next year. But you know, those are long-term goals, but something we've already talked about.
It's got to be a tough decision because many of us, quote-unquote, experts, and I use that term very loosely, think that she'd probably be second choice in the Classic. And if you were to win that race with Royal Delta and beat Game On Dude, now you're talking horse of the year with Royal Delta, potentially.
Right. Well, I mean, those are all things that you know, would be nice to have happen, but I think you know, easier said than done, of course. It's you know, it's nice to think about it up front, and you know, I just think that she's probably got a little better chance against her own sex, and you know, it'd be nice, I think, if she can win the Ladies Classic. I think she would be in good position to win another Eclipse Award for that.
Yeah, let's not forget, too, I mean, running in the Ladies Classic, she has a chance to equal Bayakoa as the only back-to-back winner of that race and make a little bit of history there as well. But take ownership out of it. Just take your thoughts and how she is doing right now. She looks so dominant, obviously, in the Beldame. If she were to run in that race, I mean, where would you prefer her to run if it was solely on you? And how do you think she'd line up against the best males in the world?
Well, you know, knowing that we're going to have the opportunity to do that at another time, I think it makes it a little bit easier. You know, if this was to be her last race, maybe I'd say maybe we should line up against the boys and take a shot. But knowing that, you know, we might have another year to race her, and you know, we could try it next year, providing she's still in as good a form as she is now. I'd just frankly be thrilled to death to win another Ladies Classic with her and try to make it 2 in a row. Obviously, you know, and that's a very competitive race in itself. It's a very deep field. It's got a lot of fillies in it with a lot of speed, and it's going to be a very good and tough race to win.
You look to have 4 horses go, or 3 horses, excuse me, in the Classic and Royal Delta. It looks like she's going to go in the Ladies Classic. But Ron the Greek, even though, you know, he didn't run particularly well in the TVG Jockey Club Gold Cup in his last start, is it fair to say that his best performance was in the race we're looking at right now, the Santa Anita Handicap, in which he crushed by 3.5 lengths? You must really like his chances back over this surface.
Right. If the racetrack itself is playing anything like it was in the spring when he raced there, and he really did prove that he liked the distance and he liked the racetrack then. Obviously, he liked the fast pace that was in front of him that day. You know, he'll be a factor. He's proven at 10 furlongs, and and he must have liked the weather out there. So, it was probably his biggest margin of victory, and looked like, he won with a little something left that day.
Was there any excuse for his last race?
We'd had a lot of rain the day before, and that track was kind of drying out, and it was still a little bit greasy underneath. Some horses handle it, some didn't. And I think the only excuse I can give him is that he really wasn't in love with that racetrack. He just didn't seem to be able to put in his run at any point. He seemed to be struggling the whole way.
Well, unfortunately, because he'd been so consistent, so that had to be a tough day for you. Oh, no, wait, you won the race. Flat Out ran huge for you on that occasion. How is Flat Out doing coming up to his best, do you feel, for the Classic?
He's coming off a super race, and he's there again. He's a horse that's proven that the 10 furlongs is certainly within his capabilities. He probably excels at that distance. So, I feel pretty good about him. I feel good about his chances.
How tired was he out of this? I mean, this was a tremendous effort. Obviously, he wins by a head. He was in a dogfight the last eighth of a mile with Stay Thirsty. How tired was he after that kind of grueling race in which he came out on top by a head? You know what?
I tell you what, he's a durable, tough sort of horse, and he at least outwardly, all the signs that he gave us was that he felt pretty good. I mean, he dove right back into his feed tub and, back on the track and moving well. So it didn't appear to take too much out of him. Obviously, anytime they run that hard and that fast, sometimes, you do see the result of it sometimes in their next race. But as far as the way his training is going and the way, the indications that he's given us around the barn and on the track are that he's doing quite well.
Well, it's great to have options with horses. It means you not only have a talented horse, but that you've done a tremendous training job with that horse as well. You have the options with Royal Delta. You also had options with To Honor and Serve. Why go Classic? What went into that decision with To Honor and Serve?
Well, number one, it's going to be his last race. And we want to reach out and shoot for the big one, and he's doing very well. He got beat 3.5 lengths in the Classic last year, and he ran, within a half a length of Have de Grace and Flat Out and a couple other real good horses in there last year. He's a year older. He's a little more seasoned. He ran a good, tough race, which you're showing right now in the Woodward. He ran a good race there. He showed that he was certainly well capable of getting the mile and an eighth. We're adding another furlong to it, and that, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for him, I suppose. But he's a horse with a lot of speed, and he should be, I think he's going to be a factor in the race at some point.
That's what I was going to ask you. There's not a lot of speed on.
And hopefully at the end.
Yeah, there's not a lot of speed on paper. Does he go to the lead in the race, or do you think he sits? Because Game On Do doesn't have to go to the front. You try to get the jump on the horse who's going to be your favorite with To Honor and Serve.
Well, I think if you saw his last race, I mean, he was up close, but in a stalking position, and I think that's his type of race. I suppose it all depends on the post position of what he gets and with the other horses. But you got to figure that he's going to be up in the first flight for sure.
And for those with a short-term memory, you won both these races last year again. Where does that Drosselmeyer Classic victory rank for you? I mean, that had to be a pretty special win. Well, it was big. I mean, obviously winning the Belmont with him was big, and we've won a lot of big races, and the interesting thing about it with Drosselmeyer was, there wasn't quite as much pressure going into it as there was with a lot of them. He obviously was, a little bit of an outsider going into the race, but he was an outsider that had proven himself at a distance, and he happened to be a horse that was really coming into his own. He kind of idled in the middle of the year. We had kind of an odd year with him because he didn't seem to do well, early on, but as the fall rolled around, he got better and better, and he was training better and better, that month or 6 weeks leading into the Breeders' Cup, and it just became
it was a timing issue with him, and on that particular day, he loved the racetrack and he liked the 10 furlongs. He might have been one of the, the horses in the race that was sort of proven at that distance. And the fact that he had that stamina going for him, I think it showed up in the final yards of the Classic last year.
Bill Mott has been our guest. Mr. Mott, thank you so much for joining us. Winner of the Ladies Classic and Classic last year, and a chance to do that back-to-back years. Incredible just to be in that position. Thank you for coming on.
Okay, thanks for having me.